So here we are, just let's look at our daily checks again, just to summarize. It is really, really important. I cannot stress enough how valuable it is to do this. So we all get lazy, we all want to jump in the car and head off in the morning. But just come through, just check the brake fluid reservoir. Check the clutch fluid reservoir. Because as you can see, there's fluid in there. It's the smallest of the two. It's got a little float on top.
What color are you looking for there?
Well, look, it should be a translucent sort of yellowish, whitish color. Once it starts going black, the fluid is contaminated, okay, and it also gets old. This brake fluid is slightly darker, it is new, but you'll see that's perfect. So I'm checking this level there, checking this level here, opening up the air cleaner, pull a little pipe off, pop it open.
Is this a factory air cleaner?
So this is the factory air cleaner, okay. It's not a Toyota one, it's an aftermarket filter. Nothing wrong, some of the good aftermarket filters are really good. Terrain Tamer make a good filter kit, Gud make good filters in South Africa, and Toyota make good
Terrain
filters.
Tamer starting to get a bit more of a footprint in South Africa?
Terrain Tamer are doing fantastically well. They have really made a good impact. It's great to have the access to the parts. They're really good quality parts. They're well packaged and they're easy to get. So yeah, I use a lot of them in my builds, and I'm always looking for what is the best quality part I can put in the car. Some of the Toyota parts have been improved by Terrain Tamer, and then I'm going to take that part over and above a Toyota part. Sometimes a good aftermarket part is also good enough. It depends how critical it is, but when it's safety related or it's like engine parts, I'm very fussy about what we use.
The amount of checks and balances you're going through, how does anybody get through with no experience, no training, and they just get to throwing the keys to the hire car? That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It is a recipe for disaster, and I think a lot of hire companies will make some effort to give you a handover. What they don't want is they don't really want to give you access to starting to fix their car if you don't have experience. What they should always do, I feel, is teach you how to do your daily checks, because the daily checks are going to save them time.
That's going to save them money as well.
And it's going to save them money. It's more important, it's going to save you. You've booked a holiday, you've gone away. If you just had that knowledge of what to check daily, you could pick up a problem long before it becomes an issue, and you're able to sort it out. So yeah, it's easy. So we've checked the air filter, and as I said even previously, there are lots of ways. Make sure that these clips are always clipped on. Don't let this filter top not be sealed properly, because if it's not sealed properly and air gets between the filter and this housing, it sucks straight into the engine. So it's really important. Any little pipes that's supposed to go on, as you took it off, put it back on. So how much experience do I need? Once you've done this a couple of times, you'll know how to do it. It's not rocket science. It's really, I teach it to everyone who goes on a trip, both the husband, the wife, anyone who wants to learn can learn to do daily checks. It's simple. You're looking for telltale signs. Okay, so we've checked the clutch fluid, the brake fluid, the air filter. Open up the radiator, check the radiator cap. Now, if I look in the radiator, it's got a color to it. That shows me that there's antifreeze in there, it's full. I'm looking at the radiator cap, it's got two seals. Okay, it's very important that these seals are in good condition.
And aftermarket caps that don't quite fit properly.
Well, you don't want to risk. It's a critical component. Yeah. There are some very good makes of aftermarket caps that work really well. What you want to check though is you want to check the quality of the seals. For me, it's more important if I'm checking the radiator, I'm checking the fluids in there. Now, if the water's dropped in there, I need to check and say, is this the problem? Is the seal compromised? Okay, it's not got any cracks in it. This is in perfect condition. Okay, and is the actual rim of this all good? Feel it? Okay, it's all okay. So that's not my problem. Okay, the cap is sealing properly. The cap's got two seals on it, so the second seal allows the radiator to draw water in and out from this overflow bottle here. So this is really important, that when the radiator is cold, the engine's cold, you can check the actual level of the fluid. You've got antifreeze in. You can test the concentration of your antifreeze. If you take it to your workshop, the guys can measure the concentration. But if you change your antifreeze often enough, You shouldn't worry about it. Just change it. You know it's good. 50-50 mix, really good. This overflow bottle here, that needs to have antifreeze in as well, because what it's going to do, as it gets hot, it pushes extra fluid into this, and as it needs more, it sucks it back. So it's basically it's a system that it's not a closed system, as we call it, but it allows this fluid, this water, this antifreeze to be taken up from this bottle. So if this hasn't got any fluid in here, then you're going to compromise your cooling system. Very important. Power steering. Power steering's got a little dipstick, and it's got a level on it which is hot and cold. Okay, and when it's hot, it's going to be slightly higher, and when it's cold, it's going to be lower. The oil, as it heats up, it expands slightly. So when it's cold, we want to just basically take it, dip it, and then have a look where the mark is. Okay, to check, is it on level? And that's important that you check that and you use the correct grade of oil to top it up. Again, on the engine oil.
And I must say, what a backdrop, this 24-valve engine.
Ah, Craig, I know you just want one. Listen, guys, Greg's drooling.
I'm drooling.
So here we are. We've got oil on the dipstick. You want to check that you've got your markings on the dipstick. You've got your low end and you've got your top end. You really don't want the oil to be a lot higher than the top of the...
Do you check your own oil at the petrol station?
I do, yeah. Okay. Now generally, when you turn the car off, the oil's going to take a little while to settle back into the sump. It's warm, it's hot, so it's slightly more than what it should be. So the best is always to check it when it's cold. I like to check it, but nothing wrong with checking it at the fuel station. It's a good time if you need oil to put a bit in. Okay. Again, when I'm looking at the dipstick, I'm looking for a few telltale signs. This oil was quite clean. Okay, it's been serviced, hasn't done much mileage. If the oil gets darker and more black, as it does with the diesel, it's the unburnt contaminants that are making it more sort of tired and more dirty. Okay. Sometimes I put fuel, a few occasions, I put really bad quality fuel in the car. And after about 1,000 kilometers, my oil had gone really thick. And that was just telling me that the fuel was really bad. It wasn't doing its job. There's a lot of unprocessed contaminants, carbons coming into the oil. So I changed the oil, 1,000 kilometers. I knew I had to change it because the dipstick told me so. It told me that the oil on the dipstick was getting so thick and like gloopy after 1,000 kilometers. So again, we're looking for telltale signs that can give us little hints as to how the condition is. You know, it's easy if you're sick, Greg. I'll ask you how you're feeling. You go, Paul, I've got a headache, I'm feeling a bit dizzy. You know, that's a telltale. The engine's got to talk to us in other ways.
Your feelings on biofuel? I see there's a crowd around here that the green diesel that produce it at a kind of more industrial spec. Do you trust biofuel if it's done properly?
You know, I wouldn't say I don't know enough about biofuel to say how good or bad it is, okay? But if I'm going on expedition, I want to make sure I can put the best fuel I can get in my truck. Why? Because I'm going a long way from any help. And I want to make sure that I'm giving my vehicle every chance to run at its optimum with the best quality fuel. The same as when I'm changing oil. If I'm changing oil in a workshop I don't know, and they've got a big drum of oil that they're going to take for my car, I'd probably not use it unless I knew it was absolutely good quality and one of the brands I knew. Okay, I'd rather go and buy my oil from a shop and know, here's my 10 liters of oil or whatever I need for the engine, and go, please put this oil in my engine. I know it's a brand I can trust. Okay, so it's always, there's a lot of trust when you're giving someone your vehicle to work on, and the less knowledge you have, the more trust you've got to put in someone. So when you're trusting someone, the very least, you need to be able to do some checks and balances. So after a service, the checks and balances for me is, I check the dipstick to make sure that the oil in the dipstick is on the correct level. Because when you change oil in an engine, you'll fill it up, the mechanics will put oil in. If they don't run the engine, the filter doesn't get filled up. You'll check the dipstick, maybe the guy forgot to run the engine. You take your car, you jump in it, you head off, and now you're half a litre oil less than you should have. Okay? You may not know that until 5,000
And then you panic because you think your car's using a lot of oil.
Yeah. You know, so that's always right. The other thing is wheel nuts. That's safety critical. So I watch someone tighten my wheel nuts. I make sure they don't use an air gun where they take these pneumatic guns because they
I hate
can
those
really
things.
damage your wheel nuts and your studs. They can stretch them. And I check them myself. I make sure that my wheels are tight, my sump plug is tight, my oil filter's tight. I'll take a rag, I'll put it on the oil filter, and I'll tighten it with both hands and make sure that's tight.
So you pack in your own parachute.
Yeah, you know, you're going to rely on it, so best you make sure it opens when you need it.
Absolutely. Any more checks that you'd
So under the engine bay here, we did cover looking down at the belts, looking at the radiator fan, checking the radiator, and you know, depending on where you've driven, looking at the intercooler, checking to make sure
grass and
no
whatnot.
grass, no bugs, clean it off, little brush, clean it off.
Same for underneath the car, spin effects and
So
whatnot.
from here, your next check is underneath, looking underneath, and literally because it is only a 5, maximum 10 minutes. Once I've gone around here, I'm happy. I close the bonnet, I look underneath the car before we move it. So if there's an oil leak, I know where the oil leak has come from, and I can see. And remember, a little bit of oil looks disastrous. You go, oh my God, I'm losing, you know, heaps of oil. You won't know how much oil's leaked out because if it's on dirt, it's probably seeped into the ground. But the fact it's leaked some oil out, you then can check: is it my differential? And if it is, how much oil is if I check it? And that's where you need to understand how to check it. We'll do a video on that, on how to check everything underneath.
And you got to kick the tires and all that good stuff.
So more than just kick the tires. It's really about understanding your tires and how important it is to check it.
You need to have an intimate relationship with the bulbs on your tire.
You need to have that intimate relationship, yeah. We have intimate relationships with lots of bulges. Let's make sure the tires is one of them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. But that's the sequence of quick underbody, done the engine bay check, how much water do I need, how much fuel am I going to need, where am I going to get both of those. Happy days, let's go.
Bob's your auntie.